Republican Party office for Macomb County, Michigan just happens to be in the same building as the state's leading foreclosure firm. The company's boss there has donated and raised a couple of $100,000 for the GOP. So our third story on the countdown seems, in retrospect, inevitable. The Macomb County Republicans decided to try to deny the vote to people, most of them African Americans, whose homes had been foreclosed on. Macomb is a key swing county in what we know as a major battleground state, Michigan. Its Republican chair is James Carabelli. According to the notes from a reporter for the online news site The Michigan Messenger, here's how the interview for a story about election challenges went down. The question was, how will they know if the addresses match? How will you know which addresses to check? We will have, he said, a list of foreclosed homes, and we'll make sure people aren't voting from those addresses. Last week, the Michigan GOP demanded a retraction and threatened a lawsuit, but the editors at The Messenger say they stand by their story as 100% accurate. As of 4 o'clock Eastern, they had yet to receive any legal documents. The Obama campaign filed legal documents, a lawsuit, but noted that even with without the newest variation of caging, the Republicans might have gotten some of what they wanted, to scare off those who have been foreclosed on from even trying to vote. As to the bigger picture, a group of civil rights lawyers today launched Election Protection, mobilizing thousands of volunteers, including lawyers, to man the polls on Election Day, November 4. Alan Raymond knows more about this stuff than is good for him. He spent 3 months in prison in 2006 for his involvement in an illegal phone jamming operation during the New Hampshire Senate race in 2002. A year ago, he wrote How to Rig an Election, Confessions of a Republican Operative. Mr. Raymond, thank you for some of your time tonight.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
About Macomb County in Michigan, is this a big play, or is this, as the Obama campaigner suggested, that you probably couldn't do this on Election Day, you couldn't strike those voters, but simply the media coverage of this might suppress voting to some degree?
Well, it's a big play now because you're getting headlines, and so ironically, it's actually something that the Obama campaign can use to gin up intensity. It can send headlines from the Michigan Messenger, whether it be through phone calls, direct mail, whatever it might be, and they can tell people that they want to make sure who vote on Election Day to say, look, the Republicans are going to go to no end and no depth to stop you from voting, so you have to get out and vote. So in this way, it's a bit of a jiu-jitsu move. It's going to work against the Republicans, and you have to keep in mind that Kerry won Michigan by 165,000 votes, roughly, in 2004. Last year alone, there were 155,000 foreclosures in Michigan. So it's a real tactic.
I mentioned caging. For somebody who might not be familiar with what that term really means, could you define it and tell me whether or not this stuff meets the definition of caging?
Well, it sure can. I mean, caging is this. You essentially send a first-class letter to a household where you suspect that that person no longer lives there, but where they're still registered to vote. That letter comes back. You take that name and address. You put it on a list. That list gets distributed for Election Day, goes to the appropriate polling place, and someone there then challenges that vote if that person comes in to vote. So it's a way to build a list, and certainly you can go down to the county recordation office and build foreclosure lists just like you can build any other list.
Does this initiative, like the one that was launched by this group of civil rights lawyers today, deploying thousands of volunteers, costing millions of dollars, is that the tactic to use against these tactics, or does it turn out to be more like a game of a national whack-a-mole?
Well, you're probably going to whack a couple of moles, but in a close election like you're likely to have this year, if you don't do it, you're certainly going to be kicking yourself the day after, on Wednesday after the election. You have to do, whether it be for Republicans or Democrats, it's such a close election, you better be doing everything. It's all hands on deck and all tactics, legal, I might add, that you want to be employing.
Anything voters should look for in the way of red flags leading up to Election Day and actually at the polls on the 4th?
Well, you know, it's always going to be the same old shenanigans. So, you know, for instance, a direct piece of mail or a phone call that says, you know, if it rains, you can vote on Wednesday. That type of thing. So, yeah, I mean, you had the Ballot Security Task Force in 1981, which essentially was set up in New Jersey in the governor's election. Off-duty cops wearing black armbands and sidearms in certain urban polling places, essentially there to scare off a certain vote, minority votes, Democratic votes. So, you know, there's a history of this stuff in the country. I can attest to it. I'm an example of it. That's why I wrote the book, so people can read the book and understand what to look for.
It's invaluable. Alan Raymond, the author of How to Rig an Election. Thank you tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you.